Hello and welcome to CTN. To learn more about the show, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. And today's topic is sustainability, the new profit. What am I talking about here? So see, sustainability has become almost a major charter for many companies globally. Some companies, some countries are more going full gung-ho with sustainability versus others. But regardless, what is happening as a major trend, that even the consumers who are trying to work with companies using their goods and services, they are looking at these organizations, whether they are doing good for the planet, good for the society, and they're making such decisions. So it is no longer a good or a nice to have feature, if you will, in your corporate arsenal. It is more of a must. But then once you feel that there is an intention, is the execution following? Is the funding following it? Is the strategy appropriate for us to get there? And you're never done with sustainability. So how does that journey look like? What has been the issue or sets of issues that you have encountered and or you're encountering and how you're dealing with them? So discuss all that. I have with me Niklas Sundberg, who's the Chief Digital Officer and Senior Vice President of Kuehne+Nagel. Hey, Niklas, how are you?
I'm very good. Happy to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Great to have you, sir. And I also have Karin Svensson, Chief Sustainability Officer with Volvo Group. Hey, Karin, how's life there?
Hi, it's fine. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great to have you as well. So let's start with this first question. Niklas, this is for you. When we are looking at the sustainability trends, the way people are looking for this as almost like a cost of doing business versus just the cost, how are your decisions getting influenced? And I'm talking about not just the folks who are in technology, but also in chief sustainability officers. How are they joining hands to make sure there is a true impact created when you have an opportunity here?
So one of the key reasons I joined Kuehne+Nagel is that the transportation sector is one of the big industries where we can have a big impact on a global impact, how we manage all of the emissions across the globe, both from a sea freight and air freight and a road freight perspective. And the interesting part about being in this role is also that sustainability is really a common purpose for many of our customers. And if we look at the holistic view on many of our customers, majority of them have committed to science-based targets. And that indirectly trickles down to us because we need to provide sustainable supply chain solutions globally.
Karin, this is a question for you. When we look at a chief sustainability officer, what is the holy grail for you? What, if you delivered on, will make it worth it?
That's a big question. I think as a company, we have set ourselves to be net zero by 2040. And that is, of course, one of the main things that I'm working with on an everyday basis. But that is not the only thing. For us, sustainability also includes what we do within resources. So making using recyclable materials, for example, but also what we do within the pillar of people. So making sure that the transition we are doing is done in a just way, that we are involving people in our own workforce, but also in the supply chain and in the communities that we impact. So I think I think you started off saying that there is no end to sustainability. So I think we have some interim targets and we have some goals that we want to meet along the way, but the journey of sustainability will never end. I think if we are able to meet some of the critical targets we have set for ourselves for 2030, I would be super happy, but there will always be work for us in the sustainability area.
So Niklas, question for you. If I were to take sustainability as a project, for example, there could be a milestone, but if you don't have any end date, then what should be the mindset that should be worn by all people in management and the folks who are working it? Should they say, okay, I'm going to work on something, I'll try to put in some effort, but I don't control all the variables. So it's like weathermen, they predict weather. If it doesn't work out, if they say it's going to rain and it doesn't rain, you just move on.
No, but I think the positive thing is like I said, that most of our customers have a common purpose with science-based targets. And some of what our customers are telling us is that they want to have emission visibility, they want to have transparency, They want us to provide strategic consultancy on different modes of transportation and how they can become more sustainable, and also work collectively on co-creation in terms of how we can jointly work on supply chain emission reductions across the value chains and work on a structured approach. And similarly, also have those targets to 2040, 2050 to be zero and net neutral, so to say. So it is an evolving journey, and it never stops.
So, Karin, when we look at these models, right, that we are coming up with and we want to execute, and you want to use technology to whatever level extent possible, how has your interaction or collaboration with IT, and where do you think we are today with that collaboration and your ability to leverage technology, and what is left to be desired? What are you working towards?
I think for us, technology is much broader than, of course, only IT. But if I would limit myself in this question, then maybe we can come back on other technological solutions to IT. I think data and IT is truly an enabler in our sustainability journey. We talk about sustainability in IT, which is, of course, then the carbon footprint of our IT infrastructure. But we also talk about sustainability by IT. That is that data and IT can enable sustainability both for us and for our customers. And we have, for example, an example from Volvo Energy, which is one of the business areas in the Volvo Group, where we have now a product called Resell, where we, through data, make it possible to track the battery, preparing it for its second life. So I think we can utilize data and IT in many different ways in order to improve sustainability. Another way where we can really utilize data and IT is to measure our performance when it comes to sustainability. I started off by saying that we have many different sustainability targets, and of course it's important to understand how we track against these. So by having data on things like greenhouse gas emissions, but also on waste and water and different things, we can track how well we are progressing, which is really important in order to make sure that we are pacing in the right way.
Niklas, you know that among other culprits of what creates these sustainability related issues, IT is also part of that, right? Because we also create a lot of carbon emission and other things which we have to go deal with.
Yes.
So on one hand, we say IT help us in getting a better handle on sustainability, but on the other hand, we also have to slap their hand to not overdo what they are doing because they are kind of adding to the problem. How does one balance that in an organization or in community as a whole?
I thought in the previous in the past it was fairly simple. I think because it was so tangible that you can see that data center amounts to roughly 2 to 3% of emissions in the world today, which is on par with the global aviation industry. But then now, when the entry of Gen AI and really the explosion of AI and compute power and storage and so forth, there is actually a more challenging dynamic here, because on one hand, you have power-hungry data centers and AI machines that needs a lot of data and energy to consume them. On the other hand, you have very powerful tools and technology to be able to create new sustainable solutions out of that. But when the trade-off is, and even now in the US, they're starting to wake up, and the Department of Energy is saying that by 2030 in the US, 25% of their energy consumption in the US is going to be from data centers if we're not careful. So here is really a balancing act where we need to also make sure that we build sustainable AI solutions going forward, and we don't just continue on this race to the biggest large language model. And this is a big challenge for us going forward.
So Karin, when somebody from AI team is summoned by you to say, hey, help me with sustainability, do they hide from you because they're also causing the trouble?
No, I think it's really important what Niklas is saying, and I think being a big company in transportation, of course, the largest part of our emissions today comes from when our products are being used. Approximately 95% of the emissions from transportation comes from when the trucks or the buses is out on the road. And only 0.5% approximately of the emission comes from our own production, including then what we see from data. But we think that this part will grow, so it's an area where we need to keep an eye on. But as Niklas also said, I think this is a great enabler for many of the things that we need to do in sustainability. So we need to balance these things, and we need to work together to find good solutions.
So, Niklas, talking about data, right? So, since that becoming the new currency, if you will, for everything, for business and sustainability as well. How far have you been able to truly mine the data? While AI has the compute power, it has the intelligence, and of course, humans are also joining hands. Have you cracked the code of saying, okay, let data and the churning of that data and insights we derive from that data, let that help us find the path on sustainability versus humans saying, okay, this is what I want to do versus that's what I want to do?
Well, I think coming back to what the customer expectation is, and that's really obviously both to give them historical data on what was their emission for different modes of transportation in the previous year for the sustainability reporting. But then the more interesting part is the forward-looking and the simulation that you can use with data and AI and to help customers to simulate the emission reduction based on different types of scenarios, based on different trade routes, based on different volumes, and also the availability to promise, and also when you need the goods at your final destination. So there are really two different ball games, and I think the more interesting one is obviously to look at the forward-looking, the customer digital twin, and to focus on how we can optimize things forward for our customers.
So, Karin, what would you say is or are the tenets of a performance appraisal of the sustainability group, including you at the top? And second point is, what is the level of dependence on other parts of the organization or even your partner ecosystem? And where do you feel there is more work to be done so that they can step up their game so that you can step up yours?
It's a very good question. I think when we look upon the transformation that we need to do in our industry, we need to move from today where we are dependent on vehicles run by fossil fuels to a situation where we have much more of electric vehicles, either battery electric or fuel cell electric vehicles on the roads. There is work for us to do as a company, of course, and already today we have been running electric buses for more than 10 years. We have a full range of electric trucks ready to be sold to customers, and we also have electric machines that's being delivered to customers as we speak. So from a technology point of view, I think we are fairly ready, but what is different to this transition, maybe to other technology shifts that we've seen, is that we are so dependent on the world around us. There are so many enabling factors that needs to be in place or enabling conditions in order for us to be able to implement our solutions. So in our case, for example, we are in need of charging infrastructure for our trucks and buses. We are in need of access to renewable energy, and we have to make sure that there are market incentives or taxes in order to make sure that our customers are able to buy and are willing to invest in electric vehicles instead. So the ecosystem is super important for us, and that goes for policymakers, of course, but that could also be partners, etc., that we need to come together in order to form and make sure that we can actually implement the solutions that we have ready. And maybe if we come back a little bit on the data, I think one thing that we have done is that we have probably in the industry the most connected vehicles So all our vehicles are connected, so we can see where they are, for how long they stop, etc. And that data we have utilized to understand where we need to build charging infrastructure. So we know that we can't build charging infrastructure for trucks everywhere. That wouldn't be very cost efficient. But we can provide that data to authorities or to partners to make sure that we are starting to build charging infrastructure where it's actually needed. So I think that's a good example of how we can work with our data and our information together with the ecosystem to make sure that we can implement the solutions that is needed in order for us to reach our objectives to become net zero.
So the number of different entities that Karin mentioned, Niklas, it almost sometimes looks like it is boiling the ocean, and that is where most of these initiatives fail, when you try to do too many things and they've got way too many dependency. Is there a playbook to deconstruct the number of things that we have to do at any given time, or one thing is dependent on the other, so that you can finally start seeing some measurable progress and you see light at the end of the tunnel? It's not dark tunnel, it is semi-lit, but it doesn't look like a brightly lit tunnel either.
No, but I think that this is really the challenging part with sustainability, like Karin was saying, that for example, we also have a fleet of electrical vehicles. We want to increase that. And really the challenge for us is the charging infrastructure, that we need to make sure that we can get them productive enough on the road, and we can charge them when we need to, and so forth. So this is really one of our inhibitors to scale the electrical vehicles within trucks, for example. But what we are doing in the meantime, for example, is that we're also looking at other alternatives where within air freight, for example, we are exploring sustainable fuels. And we're doing that for all modes of transportation to make sure that we can mitigate these steps along the way. But also there are industry partners that need to work together to build these key capabilities out to make sure that we can scale, because otherwise we're not going to make progress enough along the way. And I think that's extremely important, to have all of the key parties at the table setting out the right direction.
So Karin, coming back with the... Yeah, go ahead, Karin, please go ahead.
Maybe coming back a little bit, how can we make this a little bit less complex? I think it is complex, so it's hard to make it less complex. But I think these types of discussions that we are involved in today, but also other opportunities where we can share with each other the roadmap we have to become sustainable and to become net zero, I think is really crucial. Because previously each player could work by themselves and be successful, but today we need to work together. And I think there's no other way than being more transparent about, this is how we see the road to sustainability, how can you support in that, and then we can connect to each other. So I think it's not an easy answer to how we can make this complex, but I think increasing transparency is at least one way to make it a little bit easier.
Now, coming to the other aspects of sustainability, which would be giving you the biggest heartburn, Karin, as you're going about tackling this?
I think that actually is the fact that we are so dependent on different things and enablers that we cannot really control. So, and the Volvo Group is we are selling our products in 190 markets today. So in order for us to move into electric vehicles in all of these markets, there are so many things that needs to be in place. And of course, we will do electrification market by market, or region by region, and even segment by segment. But still, it's quite complex to make sure that we actually can implement, to make sure that we have the charging infrastructure, that we have access to renewable energy, and also that we have the right market conditions in each market. So that's what's giving me the biggest headache, I think. That is really to make sure that we get all these pieces together, and that is also important that it happens at the right, so it's synchronized, so it happens in the right time.
So Niklas, if you were a $5,000 an hour consultant and you were consulting for Karin, what would you have advised her in terms of reducing complexity, whether to use data or any other vehicles you could have utilized to bring some method to this madness?
No, but I think, like Karin was saying, it's really important to have brutal transparency in terms of where you are and where you're going, and some of the challenges along the way. Because I think this is also the important thing to recognize, that nobody has all of the answer on this journey to become a sustainable company, being net zero, so to say. So I think it's really important to really map out the key steps that needs to happen along the way. For example, for us, what we are doing with our warehouses is to make sure that we procure 100% renewable energy, that we have smart meters in our fulfillment centers. We're setting waste and water reduction targets where we have set zero waste by 2030, for example. So really to try to distill sort of this larger target that you have in the next 15 years, for example, or 15, 25 years, but then to break it down into tangible pieces. And obviously for us being a network business, we need to work in very, very close collaboration with our partners and our vendors to drive this together.
Now, when we are looking at banking on data itself, Niklas, and making that as the currency, as the backbone, how are we making sure that whatever data is being utilized, because there are biases, there are ethical concerns, and we are trying to make million-dollar decisions based on that. How do you make sure that whatever is being done to produce the data or deriving insights from it, it is clean and it is being used responsibly? We are talking about data and AI both here.
So I think one good thing that we have now in the European Union is the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. So most companies in Europe have previously only reported on Scope 1 and Scope 2. Now you also need to focus on your downstream and your upstream emissions. Like Karin was saying, 95% of their products is generated after they have left the factory and they are in sort of operational mode. And this, I think, is a very, very important game changer where the reporting will come into play, where we will bring transparency into Scope 3, which is also the most challenging part to get the reporting right, because now you need to work with your entire value chain to bring transparency on where you have your emission and where you can find the key levers to reduce it.
So Karin, when you look at governance, right, these policies as we are discussing, on one hand, they could be very good so that it brings everybody on board, hopefully. So your ecosystem related issues could hopefully reduce in terms of you having to explain to people why they should do it. But on the other hand, when you put too many regulations, then the business starts suffering and there is a passive or an active resistance, and also sometimes hate that gets developed against these regulations, which could very well undermine the very spirit that people should have and do have in some cases, which they use as mojo to truly go after the sustainability challenge. So how do you build that right mindset among the business stakeholders within your own team to make sure that, yes, these regulations are important, but don't feel that they are chaining you down, instead use them as a way to get creative and get what you need to get done?
I think there is a need for regulation in order to get sort of a common playing field so we know what to work towards. I think there are also other ways, of course, where we can find ways to cooperate with partners. I think the big thing is that we need to cooperate both upstream and downstream into the value chain in different ways, where we need to be prepared to take a much bigger risk together with our partners than we have done before, so that we are prepared to maybe move into areas where we haven't been. If we talk about suppliers, for example, we can't just tell suppliers to say, take the example of fossil-free steel. We are really dependent, if we are to decarbonize our the materials that comes into our vehicles. Steel is one of the major materials that we need to decarbonize. We cannot just tell one of the steel producers, please provide us with fossil-free steel. There we need to work together with the steel manufacturers and say, we are prepared to take a bit of a risk to see if we can enable this. And then by working together in a more open relationship, so to say, we can also enable some of these really crucial technologies that we have a need of to be able to decarbonize.
So, Niklas, on one hand, we have this noble goal of saving the planet and doing things the right way. On the other hand, the very technology we want to use is morphing. It's hopefully giving us good outputs in a shorter time and a better quality of outcomes because we use technology. But this is also a moving target. So can you incrementally make progress, or rather make incremental progress towards sustainability while chasing the next shiny toy, which also offers business benefits?
Yes, I believe so. And Karin was saying earlier in our talk, sustainability in IT, sort of the footprint that you can control within IT, but then sustainability by IT, sort of the handprint and what you are creating in the products and solutions. And if we take the handprint sustainability in IT, there are three sort of key levers that you can work with, and that's the energy that you use to power your data center, or if you're managing that in the cloud. The second one is the waste and the embodied carbon for the servers or the infrastructure that you're using to power the data centers, that you use them longer, so to say. And the third thing is also, especially now with the emergence of AI, to make sure that you use water consumption in a responsible way, because the heating and the cooling in data centers is also quite immense. So really building data centers in a responsible way. And fortunately, in the Nordics, we have great opportunities to have this, both for sourcing the data centers with renewable energy, also to reuse the energy for something else downstream, for example, for a greenhouse or for something else, powering a ice hockey rink or a swimming arena, for example. So to really focusing on sourcing data centers in a sustainable way, or consuming it in a sustainable way, is really, really important. To be able to also, on the other level, to focus on the handprint and sustainability by IT. So I'm a great advocate to make conscious decisions to make sure that you create the infrastructure that you need, the sustainable solutions that you need going forward, by creating sustainable infrastructure.
So, Karin, what would you say is the level of empowerment or the type of empowerment that should be offered to Chief Sustainability Officer like yourself and your team, so that you are most enabled and you're most motivated to bring about change, knowing the complexity and the obstacles that you're going to face every day?
First of all, I think sustainability is not something that you could put by itself. Sustainability needs to go hand in hand with our business strategy. So I need to work very closely together with the head of strategy in our case. So we want to make sure that we have a business strategy that is sustainable. My role is of course to make sure we have a sustainability strategy that puts a little bit of pressure of the organization. But in the end, it has to be the 100,000 employees and all the different departments that really makes the work. I can be a catalyst in that way, talking about what are the important things we need to think about. But in the end, I'm not going to be the one doing the electric vehicles, or I'm not going to be the one doing the fossil-free steel. So I think to set targets, to measure our performance, and to follow up on that, that's a crucial role for me. But in the end, this needs to go hand in hand with what we want to achieve as a business. And I think luckily we see that there are great opportunities. And Niklas, you talked about the science-based targets. That's also for us. We know that approximately 8,000 companies are taking action when it comes to science-based targets. And at least quite some of them are actually our customers. And a big part of their CO2 footprint comes from transportation. So we can support them, and we can support other companies and societies to decarbonize. So yeah, I think my role is important, but there are also so many other roles that are important in a company, even though they are not called something with sustainability. But my main thing is really that sustainability needs to go hand in hand with the business strategy of a company.
So, Niklas, as you might be seeing this being done in your organization and observed others, because you are an author as well on this subject, what is the answer to what is in it for me for a regular business person who did not sign up for doing extra work or looking at this 20 different ways to make the planet better. I'm not saying they're not good citizens, but that's something that's an additional thing for them. And not everyone is most motivated, especially when their performance appraisal does not include how well did you work towards saving the planet.
So I think the fortunate thing is being in a transportation company in global logistics is that sustainability is a common purpose for many of our customers. And what our research shows internally is that 93% of our key account managers were engaged in sustainability discussions with our customers. So this is really top of mind, because I think sustainability and business needs to go very, very tightly together. It is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the way of building a sustainable business for the future. So I think it's not an and or, it's really a complement of each other to bring a sustainable future together.
So Karin, it takes a village for us to bring sustainability, right? And you got so many different people who have their own vested agenda. Nothing wrong with that. We are humans. We have our own desires. How do you rally all of them to make sure they, when no one is looking, do the right thing and support the cause?
First of all, what we do see within the Volvo Group is that our employees are actually motivated by the fact that we are a company with a ambitious sustainability agenda. If we wouldn't have had that, I think we would have had a problem. So we see people wanting to work for us because we have an ambitious sustainability agenda, and people want to be on board. I think the reason why we have that is that we keep a close dialogue with people. So we are discussing, why do we do that? How is it tied to our business strategy? So that you understand sort of the purpose of it. But then just the general public, people are in many cases very interested in the topic of sustainability and want to do good things. So I think this has been fairly easy in that sense to get people on board, at least here at the Volvo Group, when it comes to sustainability.
Nicholas, go ahead, finish your thought.
I echo that as well. I think we see a great benefit, and our employees are also highly motivated to be part of this sustainability journey.
So, Nicholas, if you think about any other initiative, which is a business initiative, and even they say sustainability is also supposed to be a business initiative, but there is a nice to have cool component to it. How do you put the heat under an initiative which is not seen as, and I'm talking about specific organizations where it's not seen as, the thing that they have to get done yesterday? How do you get the change going? Because again, when you talk about a village, that village could be employees of a company, or if you're talking about sustainability, achievement is also dependent on many companies, or hopefully all companies will start, driving this initiative. And if there are weaker links, and many more weaker links than the stronger links, the chain is still weak, and you still don't meet that agenda. So how do you get this inside out healing, if you will, and motivation to start thriving across the value chains and industries and individuals?
No, but I think the fortunate thing is that if you look at a global manufacturing company, that a big majority of their spend is also on supply chain. And to optimize supply chain is what we do for our customers. And a byproduct of that is also a reduction in emissions, for example, by reducing the number of shipments, optimizing trade lanes, changing different modes of transportation, combining modes of transportation to optimize for cost. But also in the end, this is a sustainable outcome as well. So maybe the key product is really to focus on visibility, transparency, and cost efficiency. But the byproduct is also that we have significant emission reductions by optimizing the supply chain for our customers. So one thing that we are really focusing on is to how we can help our customers to emulate their global supply chain and create this customer digital twin where we emulate the physical world in the digital world. And then we look at different levers in terms of how we can optimize different parameters for our customers. And the byproduct for sure is sustainability and emission reduction. and reduce waste.
Karin, I'm sure Volvo Group has been on this journey for a couple of years, and I'm sure you would have deconstructed or rather chunked out different projects and would have started executing them, and the cumulative effect of that is where you stand today with a positive outlook. But then when you get started, people are not on board. There are some kludginess in the processes that are there. What would you say, if now that you got this experience under your belt, for people who are starting out or they are somewhere trying to figure out how on earth do I get this whole thing going, what are the top not to do's, and what are some of the to do's that they gave you the miraculous outcome?
I think the first thing that is crucial for all companies in sustainability, it is to decide which are the most important sustainability questions for you as a company. So you need to understand, first of all, where do you have your major impact on people, on environment? And secondly, you need to understand where do you have the biggest risks related to sustainability and where do you have the biggest opportunities. When you have those two things, you have what you call a double materiality, and those are the most important topics where you should focus your efforts on. If you focus your efforts on those, I don't think we will see any sort of unnecessary sustainability initiatives. Then you drive the things that you need to drive, and then it will be easy to motivate people to do those things. Then, of course, we are going to be helped in that sense if you come from the sustainability angle also by regulation coming up. Niklas, you mentioned the new reporting directive in EU, which will make it much easier to compare companies between each other to see really what is the true sustainability performance of companies. And that in itself will, of course, also motivate companies to be clear on where they stand and avoid any type of greenwashing in that case.
Niklas, if we plan well, we've got a motivated crew, that doesn't itself ensure success. The devil is in the execution as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what are those devils? Which one should be careful of the gotchas and the pitfalls one could potentially encounter?
No, but I think to the double materiality assessment, as Karin was alluding to, I think that is very important because it maps out your journey to focus on the big picture and the big strategic initiative that's really going to move the needle for you. So I don't see a big risk that we're going to tinkering around on things that doesn't really matter or focus on greenwashing. I really think now with some of the right legislation in place, it's not going to be perfect from day one, but I think we are moving for sure in the right direction, and companies will be able to benchmark itself, and also you will be judged in terms of how you do business with your customers and your suppliers going forward based on your reporting and your outcomes in this space.
So, Ken, when you look at the road ahead, in the sense how things are morphing geopolitically, socially, environmental, the decay is happening in many ways, and you could almost always play catch up. What do you think will need to happen for you to be proud to say, oh, you know what, I got ahead of this?
What we can do as a company is to keep to the ambitions that we have set for ourselves, to keep to the targets that we have set for ourselves. But then there is only so much we can do because we are part of this big environment. As you're pointing out right now, we have geopolitical tensions, we have inflation, we have wars, we have many different things happening. So of course the pace of the transition will not only be decided by us, but will be decided by the world together in some way. But I think I will be proud if we can stick to our ambitions and to continue to work on them. Some things might go quicker, some things might take a little bit of longer time. But if we stay to those, I think we will come a long way. And also what I mentioned before, that we try to be as transparent as possible so that we can get others to join on that way to meet our sustainability targets.
All right, so this is one last question for both of you, starting with you, Niklas. What specific attitude, mindset, communication style, and leadership style would you recommend folks who are dabbling in sustainability or leading the charge must embrace, for them to be in their own, at their level, they are making an investment in themselves for them to bring an outcome which everybody desires? What would those be?
Well, I think for sure, like we talked about being an attractive employer, for example. So to really lead with assertiveness, to focus on the first key steps to bring the momentum, and to really have the focus on the key big areas that's going to have a big effect on the overall company's emission targets, for example. The transportation sector is 59 out of the 59 gigaton that we are emitting in the world today. The transportation sector is roughly 14% of that of the total. That's roughly 8 gigaton. So obviously connect that large target to what you can impact within your realm of operation. And that's why I am excited to go to work every day, because I get to work on these global challenges and these global opportunities to be part of this global ecosystem, work with our global partners to work on these reduction targets. And this is really about bringing the momentum both internally, but also together with our partners and customers to bring a positive momentum.
And Karin, when you're working in this role as a Chief Sustainability Officer with such a prestigious organization, which is motivated to bring about a difference, what is it that you are working on yourself as the Chief Sustainability Officer so you could do justice to that goal and that mission, if you will?
I think there are like 5 leadership skills maybe that you need to have in this role. I think first of all, you need to be patient, because sometimes things doesn't move as quickly as you would like them to move. You need to be persistent, that you keep on trying, even though it's sometimes hard. You need to be flexible. As we have been talking about, things are changing every day and we learn much more. You need to be curious. And finally, you need to keep your eyes on the end goal. You need to see the bigger purpose, and then I think you will be keep yourself motivated every day to go to work.
What a great conversation. Thank you so much, both Karin and Niklas, for sharing your insights about this very important topic. And let's hope everybody joins hands and we become one global village, which makes this sustainability dream come true. So thank you so much. Our audience, I request you to find us on social media and subscribe to our podcast. And again, this is Sanjay Gall from CTN, your host, signing off. Till next week, take care and God bless.